Ladies and gentlemen, I was very excited when I read Governor Greg Abbott's post on X that said, breaking. In a 6-3 decision, SCOTUS allows Texas to begin enforcing SB4 that allows the arrest of illegal immigrants. We still have hearings in the Fifth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals, but this is clearly a positive development. So I was all set to celebrate about this because this is very important to the illegal immigration crisis, when all of a sudden, what happened? The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has put the stay on the Texas SB4 law, which means they can no longer protect their border until the court rules on the decision. The Biden administration is once again using the courts to hurt Americans. Liberal judges are everywhere and willing to put politics over the Constitution. The Biden administration is more worried about hurting relations with Mexico than protecting American lives. Keep fighting Texas. So I'm sure for a short time you saw headlines about this. Headlines were everywhere saying SB4 goes into full effect. Texas is going to now be able to, on the state level, criminalize illegal immigration. But before we get into that whole mess about how it went through the Fifth Circuit, went to the Supreme Court, got kicked back to the Fifth Circuit, you know, that whole situation, you look at that, it took me like 3 hours of trying to review different articles to figure out exactly the timeline, what happened with this. But let's check out what SB4 actually does. So it makes crossing into the United States outside of a port of entry, which is already legal under federal law. But the Texas law, SB4, would criminalize the action on a state level. Then it would allow state law enforcement officials to stop and detain anyone suspected of entering Texas unlawfully. It would empower state judges to issue de facto deportation orders, and crossing into Texas illegally from Mexico would be treated as a misdemeanor crime punishable by up to 180 days in jail and a fine up to $2,000. And then, that's not it with that. If you were to illegally re-enter into Texas, this would, however, be a felony offense, punishable with up to 2, 10, or 20 years in jail, depending on whether the migrant in question had been previously deported or convicted of certain crimes. And it would allow Texas magistrates to order migrants suspected of committing the new illegal entry or reentry crimes to return to Mexico as an alternative to continuing their prosecutions. Now, there are some restrictions on this law, SB4, and the restriction is a provision that bars state officials from arresting migrants in certain locations like schools, churches, places of worship, and healthcare facilities. Now, of course, what is the justification for this? Well, Texas used this justification that more than 2 million migrants, or criminal aliens as I like to call them, were apprehended by the U.S. Border Patrol agents along the southern border in 2022 and 2023. And this is the highest level on record. This is the highest amount of illegal immigration that Texas has ever seen. Now, this bill, of course, was very divisive. It passed through the Texas House. They approved this bill, but it was completely along party lines. Of course, the Democrats were all opposed to it. The Republicans were all for it. And they passed this. And then it started to navigate through courts because as soon as it passed, and then all of a sudden there were lawsuits against it. So it went to a federal district court. And this federal district court, the judge, blocked Texas's SB4 bill. And this district judge, his name is David Ezra. He is a Reagan appointee, and he was approved by Chief Justice John Roberts to sit as senior federal judge on the United States District Court for the Western District of Texas. So this is the federal judge that is over the Western District of Texas, David Ezra. Now, David Ezra granted an injunction by the Justice Department and the ACLU to prevent Texas officials from enforcing this state law. So it basically paused the law. They couldn't enforce it. And Ezra wrote about his decision, and he said that the Constitution and the Supreme Court precedent make it clear that states cannot enforce immigration measures without federal approval, and rejected this argument from the state of Texas, because the state of Texas was basically saying, like, listen, look at all these people that are coming over our border. We consider this an invasion, and we have the right and the authority to repel an invasion. But he rejected this argument, and he said that surges in immigration do not constitute an invasion, quote, within the meaning of the Constitution. And he said that allowing Texas to enforce the law would mean states could override federal statutes. So what he is saying here is federal statutes, they supersede state statutes. And in this case, if Texas were to enforce this law, these roles would be flip-flopped. Now, of course, Governor Greg Abbott, he responded to this because he signed this law. He is for this law because he has seen what is happening to our border. It's just crazy what's going on there, how many illegal immigrants are coming over our border right now. And he said that he would immediately appeal this decision. This is a quote by him. And we will not back down in our fight to protect our state and our nation from President Biden's border crisis. And he also said the president of the United States has a constitutional duty to enforce federal laws protecting states. Because remember, it's already illegal to come over the border illegally. I mean, why do I even have to say that? But the federal government is not enforcing these laws, and Texas is paying the price. Not only Texas, but a lot of the United States is paying the price of this. So he says federal laws protecting the states, including laws already on the books that mandate the detention of illegal immigrants. Texas has the right to defend itself because of President Biden's ongoing failure to fulfill his duty to protect our state from the invasion at our southern border. Even from the bench, this district judge, this is Ezra, acknowledged that this case will ultimately be decided by the Supreme Court. So, of course, this decision by this district judge, Ezra, was appealed, and it went before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. So the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals is a federal appellate court that is over Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. So when they appeal this, it goes to this court. And the state of Texas asked for a stay pending appeal, basically asking to pause federal district judge Ezra's decision while it reviews the case. So this is where everything gets very confusing, okay? So the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals have 3 judges on a panel, okay? And they issued, these 3 judges, they came to a decision, I think it was a 2-1 decision, to issue an administrative stay. Now, this is not a stay. This is like a preliminary stay that pauses the district judge's decision until a court can consider a motion for a stay pending appeal. This is where it got really confusing to me. This is essentially a temporary stay until the real stay is considered. But in their own ruling that included this administrative stay, it put their ruling on hold for 7 days to give the federal government and these other private plaintiffs like the ACLU time to ask the Supreme Court to step in and keep SB4 on hold. In other words, because of the Fifth Circuit Motions panel's intervention, SB4 was set to go into effect at the end of the day on Saturday, March the 9th. Now, enter Justice Alito. Yes, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito. He is the circuit justice for the Fifth Circuit. Yeah, so he is basically the top dog. So the buck stops with him. So he actually issued an administrative stay of his own to put SB4 back on hold, which made it to where Texas couldn't enforce the law. But the stay expired, and the law appeared to go into effect for a short period of time. It was like 4 minutes, it appeared. And then, after the stay expired, Alito extended the administrative stay, putting the SB4 bill or the SB4 law back on hold indefinitely. And now we have to look at the Supreme Court decision. And this is another thing that affected this whole situation. So if you're having problems following this, you're not alone, because this was just complete whiplash the entire time. But they denied the Biden administration's emergency application. And at the same time, when they denied this emergency application, they vacated Justice Alito's administrative stay. So this put SB4 back into effect as soon as the stays were vacated. So this stay was vacated for about 9 hours, and then it went back to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And 9 hours after SB4 went into effect, remember that administrative stay that I told you that the Fifth Circuit issued? Well, they dissolved their administrative stay, this previous administrative stay. Yeah, there's administrative stays just being chucked everywhere. You know, they're all over the place, but they dissolved that. And this put District Judge Ezra's ruling back into effect. So essentially, you have the Fifth Circuit putting an administrative stay in place that put Judge Ezra's ruling on hold so this law could go forward. Then you have Alito, who steps in and issues administrative stays of his own that pauses this law again. Then the Supreme Court denied Biden administration's emergency applications and at the same time vacated Alito's administrative stays. Follow me here. And then this got kicked back to the Fifth Circuit, which dissolved their administrative stays, which, if you loop it all together, goes all the way back to this district judge who put SB4 on hold. So his ruling is currently in place, so SB4 cannot be enforced by the state of Texas as it stands now. So I hope you were able to follow this, because I have been following this SB4 bill for quite a while now. And when I saw that the Supreme Court had basically put it into effect, I was like, wow, this is incredible. I did not expect this to happen. And then a few hours later, boom, it's not into effect anymore because of something that happened. It's like up and down. It's a whole roller coaster ride of what is going on. And so I had to kind of dive into it and try to figure out what specifically happened. And this was the result of my research. So I hope this helped you guys. If you guys were wondering what was going on with SB4 and why it was put into effect and then it was blocked again, and if you're having some whiplash and some problems understanding what was happening, this, from my understanding, is what happened when it came to this district judge, the Fifth Circuit, and the Supreme Court. But let me know what you guys think about this down below in the comments. Like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until then, I will see you on the next one.